How scary is it quitting when you're 41 years old?
Honestly, real estate investing changed my life. At that point, when I quit, I was actually making more from my rentals than I was making on my W-2. When I got into like some of these coaching programs with different rooms, it's just having conversations with guys like yourself. It's almost like this intangible thing that happens to change like who you are, and it levels kind of like you up as a person.
The best way I can simplify this to people, and this might be the most important thing I say all podcasts, so listen up. This part's gonna really help you guys figure out how to navigate the different stages. The first thing is, what's up, wealth builders? Today, I have got a guy from Hawaii doing over $1 million a year flipping houses. But on top of that, I think he has a relatable story to many of you. He actually was a W-2 guy for a long time in software, ended up becoming financially free after just 3 years, quitting his job. And he's actually one of my only one-on-one students I have. I don't take a ton of them. And so, I'm very picky with the guys I want. And, I've come to really enjoy coaching and then developing friendship and everything else with this guy. He literally takes everything I say and just applies it, and is just so great. And along with that, he's grown a following over 100,000 people. And so I got none other than Daniel Kong. What's up, man?
What's up, man? Thanks for welcoming me, having me on the podcast.
Yep. No, we just finished a long conversation about your business. What has been your biggest takeaway? Because you tell me things that make me think of, man, I didn't even know that that's something that's helping.
It's so crazy. I think when I originally, when we were considering whether or not to sign up for the one-on-one coaching, obviously it's a big expense, or $100,000 for 12 1-hour coaching sessions with you, right? So when we were talking about it, we were like, hey, what are our goals? And this is kind of aligned or not. And so we were thinking, we have some big goals for our team and our company. And if you can get us to our goals faster, it's worth way more than $100,000, right? So if we made $1.5 million last year, maybe in 5 years, our goal is let's get to 10 million, right? So if you can cut that time to get to the 10 million in from 5 years to 2 years, is well worth way more than $100,000. So that's kind of how we justified it in the very beginning. And so that's kind of the mindset I've had when I first started the coaching calls. But since kind of having it, it's kind of been an unexpected things that have happened that I didn't expect. I think a few things were limiting beliefs, where the crazy thing about limiting beliefs is you don't realize you have them until they're broken. And so I had a certain things in my mind of what I thought was possible and what I think I could accomplish. But after hearing you say dude, you're thinking too small, you can do this. If somebody else told me that, I wouldn't have taken it too hard. But because you're telling me this and you've been there, I'm I genuinely believe that I can do more than I could before, So just, and then just helping us to solve problems that we didn't think I didn't even know were a problem when we're kind of coming in, where you kind of see things from a slightly 3 or 4 steps ahead of where we are. It's been really helpful to kind of, number one, help us to avoid those pitfalls, but also help to kind of take our business to the next level. So.
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. You know what's cool? We were just talking about the types of people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's I basically created this grid for my sales team. Okay. So it's one side is, hey, you're either broke or, you're qualified, and then there's you're either arrogant or humble.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I go, so, the qualified humble person is the easiest person to coach, to sell, to do anything with. Those are the people you want to work with.
Yeah.
And you're obviously in that category, right?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And then there's the qualified but arrogant people. They think they got it all figured out. So they think they don't need help. Those people obviously need help. Everyone needs help. But, getting them to see that they need help is a battle. Then you have people who are broke and humble. And so it's for them, they know they need help. They just don't know how to get money or get started or whatever, right? So with them, it's just helping them figure out how to go be resourceful and creative and everything. And then you got broke and arrogant people who it's kind of, there's not.
To be honest with you, when I first started, I was the broken, arrogant person where I was when I first started, I was hey, all the information is free. It's in books, it's in podcasts. Why do I need to pay for coaching? And so I think I grew up in the bigger pockets the culture, world where, and then in that I guess arena or the forums, they're super anti-coaching. I think there's a lot of people who are kind of selling coaching, but then the coaching was terrible. And so they'd pay a whole lot of money, but wouldn't get a lot of value. And so I think when I first started, I was super anti-coaching.
Yeah.
And so I was I'm just going to figure this thing out myself. And I think I had some success back then, just kind of figuring out yourself, which you can.
So what year was that when you first
That was
quit?
2019. 2019. So had some success just from reading books and just trying to figure things out from forums and just talking to other local investors. But at a certain point, I saw some other guys who were getting coaching, and I saw their careers or their investing careers just kind of skyrocket. And so I thought, hey, maybe there's something actually to this coaching thing. Maybe I've just kind of been just not like taking advantage of the different opportunities that are available. And so I joined some coaching programs, and what I realized was the thing about coaching is there's getting around in the right rooms or listening to the right mentors. It's hard to put into words like how it changes who you are. And so just when I got into like some of these coaching programs in different rooms, it's just having conversations with guys like yourself, or just having like being around the things that are happening. It's almost like this intangible thing that happens to change like who you are, and it levels kind of like you up as a person. It's really hard to explain.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it just, you get exposed to different ways of thinking. And to your point, one of the big things is thinking bigger. Yeah. Right? It's not even thinking about how to solve a problem more creatively. Like that's good when you have like a individual type of problem. Like, hey, I'm going through this. What do you think I should do? Here's what I'm thinking of doing. Do you agree? Would you do it different? And like, you've come to me with a lot of those. Yeah. And most of the time I don't agree. I'm like, hey.
Wait, that's the funny thing. So like, you know, our first call, like we were doing pretty good, right? We were doing 7 figures in Hawaii. I was like, here, Ryan, here's my plan. Here's my team. Here, like, tell me what you think. And you're like, dude, your operation sucks, right? And so I was like, and basically I was like, and you're taking first it back call. Because like it's at first you're like, dude, like you're doing it terribly. Like here's all the problems. And only someone like you could tell me that, you know? And so after the call, I was like, wow, like my operation really does suck, and there's just so much room for improvement. Yeah. But the thing was like, it's really helpful because if you told me, Daniel, you're doing great, like you don't need to change anything, that would have been a waste of like my time too, right? So it's really helpful for you to just tell me, dude, like your operation sucks. And if my peers told me that, I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking.
Yeah, you don't know.
But because you're telling me that, so okay, maybe there's something to the advice that you're actually giving me.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I enjoy it because, like I said, I enjoy coaching, you know, humble people who are actually, you know, already making moves, because it's like those types of people are just like a few tweaks away. It's not like, you know, when somebody's getting started in anything, it's very difficult, right? Because you don't know anything. You're usually low on money.
There's a huge gap to overcome. Just by reading books and listening to podcasts, you don't need coaching for that very first section, unless, I mean, like the foundational stuff, right? Yeah. How to find a deal, or how to like do EMD or whatever. And so,
but even that stuff, it's like people can't even. I've made plenty of videos, yet 1% of people actually will do something with it, right? So anyways, like I was never a fan of coaching like newbies. I'm a fan of teaching newbies, but dude, I am not going to be like, did you make your offers today? Yeah. Like I'm never going to be that guy. But, you know, I think with a guy like you, what I have learned coaching you is that, man, it just makes me remember back like when I was doing that and the ideas and thoughts I had. And, you know, it reminds me of like how far things have come in just like a short amount of time. I'm like, wow, yeah, I remember when I used to do that too. Here's how you're actually going to do it. And then I'm like, but it took me years to realize this was the right way. Yeah. And then I'm like telling you instantly. And I'm like, man, dude, it's crazy when you can start to learn from other people. And I myself like am the recipient of that from other people too. You know, it's like everything that I used to fast track is because I've learned from somebody who was further along. So, you know, basically you're always learning.
I mean, it's to your point, I think you've kind of paved the way in a lot of ways of who I am and who our company is right now. Because I think back in the day, there wasn't anybody who was doing faith and also investing like on a high level. And so I just thought that you can't mix like your faith with business. And that was my belief. But then I see you doing it. I was like, unsuccessfully. I was like, wow, if Ryan's doing it, then maybe I can, you know? And so even the WealthCon that you guys put on, I know you started with like 30 people, then you went to 100, now you got 1,000 plus. You've kind of broken you kind of like went first. And now I feel like, okay, now we can actually put on a WealthCon in a few years in Hawaii, just doing the exact same, kind of following in your footsteps of what you've already done. And so like, I think you give the example, like the 4-minute mile, right? Whereas nobody thought you could do the 4-minute mile until one guy did the 4-minute mile. And then after one guy did it, everybody's doing the 4-minute mile, right? So yeah, you're kind of paving the way. And so these coaching calls and just kind of seeing your progression has kind of allowed us to dream bigger or believe that we can do things that we wouldn't have thought before that.
Yeah. I think there's, and you know, I didn't have an agenda going into this podcast, just so everyone knows. It's just one thing I've never really talked about on this podcast is the process of being coached and why some people succeed when they're being coached or not. And so, you know, I think being humble and able to receive information is super important, which obviously you are. Now, granted, I will say this to not just like make either of us look like saints. There are things I've told you 20 times before they finally clicked. And I'm no different, right? People told me for years, dude, Ryan, you should make a YouTube channel. I'm like, no, that's stupid, right? And like, finally it clicked years later. And for instance, you're talking about this Hawaii event and you're like, hey, dude, you know what? You came in here today. You're like, I'm going to go all in on, creating events in Hawaii and meetups. Like, I understand now the value of like having your own stage, of, being able to bring people in and like give them a stage and an opportunity too. And I'm like, Daniel, I told you that 6 months ago. Like, I understand.
I mean, it's weird because like, just like you hear it once, right? And you're like, you kind of push it up to the side, just like the Legos are just not, the pieces are just not connecting. But at a certain point, I don't know what it is. Like, I think we're going to the past WealthCon and seeing a few like small things where like, wow, like a lot of like the success from having a stage is actually from WealthCon and these other things. And so it took kind of like actually seen it in person to, I don't know what clicked, but just like there was an aha moment during WealthCon where I was like, wow, this stage actually is important. So all this time that you've been telling me to start a meetup, it actually does make sense, So
let's pause real quick. We just launched something new that I'm really excited about, which is our text hotline. It is now easier than ever to get in touch with myself and my team. If you've ever been thinking about working with us in any way, whether it's through real estate investing, learning how to create content, or scaling your business, we want to help you out. And it's super simple. All you got to do is just text 725-444-5244. If you text that number, my team is going to get in touch with you right away. And I, in fact, might be responding to some of those texts as we get the system just built out and rolling. We can answer any of your questions for getting you help, telling you about our different programs, different events we've got coming up, different resources that we have that can help you. It's going to be epic. So just text us at 725-444-5244 and somebody will respond to you and get you help right now.
Yeah, it's just, I think people need to hear that because even the best people, right? There are times where they hear something and it clicks right away.
Yeah.
And then there are times, dude, for whatever, their mind wasn't ready for it. Maybe their business, they had other more pressing problems and things to solve than that specific thing right there. And that's actually what we were talking about today in the one-on-one, was like understanding that, if something just keeps getting pushed off to the side, it's obviously not a priority, right? And it doesn't mean that it's not important. It's just like, clearly it's not a priority because there's always just things popping up. And yet when we choose to do those things instead of this thing that maybe has been sitting on our plate for months or a while, you're like, I'm going to write that book. I'm going to create that podcast. I'm going to hire that person. And you haven't done it for however long.
The problem, I think, is there's so many things I want to do as an entrepreneur, right? I want to write a book. I want to get into multifamily. I want to blow up my social media. I want to start meetup events. I want to make money flipping. But it's always like, I have these great ideas that they're like, for instance, like social media, it pays off in the long term. But while I'm working on it, I'm investing all this time, energy, and money and getting zero money back. But in my flipping, if I stop investing in this guy, now I'm not going to make money for today. So it's like this constant balance, or this constant decision making of, should I put more money, time, energy into the thing that's making me money today, but is not as important long term, versus like the social media where it's important long term, but I'm not getting any money today. So there's the constant kind of struggle of where should I put my time and energy.
Yeah. And you're always going to be battling between long-term and short-term gain. Now, as we were talking about before this, the best is when you can do actions that are both long-term and short-term.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I was giving an example, like, on Saturday, we're really going all in on building out just the best of the best sales team. That's my goal the next 90 to 180 days or the year. Just depends how long it takes, right? And we literally spent 5 hours training them. And I've never spent 5 hours training the sales team. Okay. I didn't train them all 5. Brian Davila trained them for the majority. I hung out there for like 2 hours and changed their mindset, hyped them up, and, talked about why, like the first step is product, just knowing and understanding the product. How can you sell if you don't know the thing you're selling?
Yeah.
And learning to have conviction behind it.
I think a big part of the selling, I think, is just having conviction. I think when you're like, when we're talking to these homeowners, I think at a certain point, there something clicked for me whether or not like we're actually doing a good deed. I think because when you first start, you're trying to buy these things on pennies on the dollar. Yeah. So you think like, dude, like, am I just trying to rip somebody off or just trying to get their house for really cheap, right? Yeah, but then at a certain point, we started going with this 3-prong approach where we give them 3 offers. One is, hey, here's what it would look like if you were to list with a realtor. You get like the most amount of money. Here's what it would look like, the time involved, those different kinds of things, right? So that's one option. The second option is, here's a cash offer. It's like the easy button. It's like going to be the lowest offer, but it's kind of like going to be like it's like you don't have to think about it. It'll be like the 2 weeks to get cash for your house, and you can walk away on that day. And the third one is a creative offer where we can say like, hey, here's something in between where we can give you a little bit more money, but now we can structure it creatively to, you can stay in the house for 6 months after, or we can make you payments all the time, or different kinds of things. And then once we kind of start going with the 3-prong approach, it's crazy that I see people like, hey, if you list with a realtor, you'll get $700,000. It's just gonna take a couple of months for you to do it. If we buy cash, we can only pay $500, but then it'll be like the easiest thing for you to do. But once we give them the option, a lot of people are like, I don't care about like the extra money. I just want the cash and make it the easiest thing possible. And so when I saw people actually choosing the cash offer when they had the realtor option in front of them, I was like, wow, we're actually solving a problem and providing a service to these people for a need or something that they really need, you know? And so
yeah, no, 1,000%. And I think in any business, I learned this early on when I was flipping couches. You know, people would sell me a $5,000 couch for $100.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember when I was buying the couch, I'm like, dude, I cannot believe this person's just basically giving me this couch for nothing. Like, I feel like I just pulled one on them. But you got to remember, those people are like, bro, get this couch out of my house. I got a new $10,000 one coming in right now. I do not care. It doesn't matter to me. Could they have sold it themselves and went through all the headache and maybe sold it for $1,000 or $2,000? For sure. But it just, they don't care. And I've become that way in many things I do in my life now, where I'm just like, bro, I am not going to do this. Just, I don't care. Let's go. And yeah, a lot of people are like that with their houses and anything, right? Like, you know, when you're buying a service, right, you're paying for value, and value is generated in many different ways. It could be from price, you know, of like, yo, this is just so cheap relative to the competition. It could be from just like quality. Hey, you know, the quality of this table is way better than an IKEA table. You know, it could be from speed. You know what? I don't have 2 months to get this thing done. I need it. I need the money today. Right. It could be from just the, you know, like the level of service. Like, dude, they were just the most friendly. Like everything was white glove. Like, they took care of me. Yeah, I paid way more for them to do that, but I'd pay it 10 times over because of the quality of service. Or, you know, it could just be something as simple as, you know, catering to whatever their needs were. Right. So it's like with a homeowner, dude, I need a rent back. I need XYZ. And it's like, all right, you know what? We're willing to get creative with you to get you something that's perfect for you, you know, custom. And, people just get too caught up thinking it's only about the money. Yeah, because you always put yourself in that person's shoes. Like, if I was them, I wouldn't do this, right? And so it's hard to see because I was like, I would never sell my house for a discount because I could just list it with a realtor, right? So, but then like when you take a step back and see that like everybody is gonna have different like views of the world, what's important to them, then you can like actually give them options with conviction. And then I think that's the big thing we talked about, where when you're selling and believing like, here's the options for you, and like the cheapest price might not always be like the best option for me, but it might be the best option for them. It helps you to actually sell with more conviction, right? So yeah, and I was telling on like the other end of the spectrum, I remember one of my friends was buying a house for himself, and this guy's a house flipper, so he's just used to getting great deals, right? Yeah. And he was like, dude, I really like this house, but dude, like, they're not budging. It's not a deal. Like, I'd be paying market value and everything else. And I was like, well, you're going to raise your family in it, and you're going to be living in it for, you know, how many years? You know, okay, at least 5 years. Well, bro, let me ask you a question. Okay. Would you rather live in this house the next 5 years, have the safety of your family, the ease of your mind, the enjoyment, you know, knowing you can go walk to the park and have this big backyard and all these things? What is the value of that? And how much more do you think your business will make the next 5 years because you're in a place where you're comfortable and safe and where you want to be? So think about that. And I go, and then I'll give you another scenario. You go just buy a random good deal, and maybe you have $100,000, $200,000 of equity. Okay. But it's not in an area that you want. You know, it's still okay, but it's not like this, not your dream.
Yeah.
Over the next 5 years, yeah, you got an extra $100,000, $200,000 in equity, but which one's going to win? And he was like, I never thought of it. Like, I was just so caught up on getting a deal because that's how I think. But yeah, you're right, dude. It's not worth $100,000.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, the next 5 years, I'd way rather live over here. And in fact, in 5 years, that house is going to appreciate way more than this house. So it's actually going to still make more in the long run. And I go, exactly.
It's funny. I had a similar conversation with another buddy of mine. He's kind of like an up and coming investor. And he's like, oh, I gotta find a house hack. I want to live in a house hack because I want to, like, you know, that type of
Everyone
thing,
tells me I should live in a house hack.
Yeah. And so, well, you buy one, you rent out the other, so you save on mortgage, whatever. But like the advice was like, the dude is doing really well financially. He has a successful business. I'm like, dude, like the peace of mind that you're going to get from just owning your own house as opposed to dealing with tenants and things, like the value there of just the monetary value that you save here is almost like you're stepping over dollars to save pennies, right? Where like you're trying to be very frugal on your house hack, but in actuality, if you just buy like a nicer house in a nicer neighborhood which you can afford, then just have like the peace of mind, the quality of life here. It'll supercharge your business where you'll make way more on this side as opposed to trying to like just save a little bit on this side, right? So
yeah, no, 1,000%, and that's why like people just. You know, because like what the line of thinking that gets you to a certain point in your life isn't the same line of thinking that will get you to the next.
That's true. That's really true.
Right? Because everybody, let's just say you're broke starting out. Well, yeah, you're super frugal. You are house hacking. You are doing whatever it takes to grind. So if you're broke watching this, you know, what I just told you doesn't apply as far as just go buy a market value home, your dream home. You ain't there yet. You haven't earned it. You're broke, right? You need to be frugal. You need to grind it out. You need to do those things that are really hard. And then that will get you to a certain point. And you're going to be, you know, a much better person, more well off, everything. You're going to have skills. You're going to have perseverance and all these things. But then if you always keep that mentality, you will never grow beyond that, right? Yeah. And I think you brought it up, like growing up, learning from bigger pockets. I grew up learning from bigger pockets too. I started in 2015. And I had the same mentality. You know, I was broke and I was like, I don't need to pay for nothing. And I was actually really successful. I probably flipped 100 houses before I ever bought any education.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, like I was the ultimate arrogant well-off because I was like, bro, I've accomplished all this without doing it. I wore it as a badge of honor. And then the moment I finally started paying for stuff, I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. So, you know, I was humbled by being around these other people who are way bigger than me. I was also humbled for the fact that, dang, I could have actually been way further had I just done this. And then it just changed my mindset. But, you know, it took time and everything else. And I think it's just a different part of growth. Wealth Builders, I'm so excited to announce the launch of Wealthy University. This is literally the best deal we've ever created. Imagine if you got calls with me and my team every single week where you can ask Q&A and get up-to-date information on what's working in my business and for other experts in the world. On top of that, what if you got access to all of our courses? And what if you got access to exclusive softwares like our CRMs in our community to go and do deals and make relationships? Well, if that sounds like something you want to be a part of, it's only $97 a month. I'm not kidding you. If you've joined any of our other programs, you know they're a lot more expensive than that. So to get access to our community for only $97 a month is absolutely insane, and it's so easy to sign up. All you got to do is go to wealthyuniversity.com, and you could sign up today and get instant access to those calls, exclusive content like our WealthCon recordings or our workshop recordings, and so many other things in the community. So go check out Wealthy University today and get signed up. Yeah.
I think, like to your point, I think there's like kind of levels that you're at where in the very beginning, like saving that Starbucks or not going to that eating out, it makes a big difference in your percentage wise in your income, right? But at a certain point, so you got to look at what's your potential, what are your goals. And so if your goals are very small, like, hey, I just want to make $100,000 a year, then like just saving your way there, like, hey, when I retire, I just want to have like $1 million in my bank account, whatever that is. If it's a very small amount, then you can kind of just save your way and just do the Dave Ramsey method to kind of like reach that point, right? But if you have bigger goals or bigger dreams, that's where paying for coaching or paying for things where the investment is, because you have like a bigger goal or bigger dream to kind of reach. And so I think it just matters on where your goals are and kind of like where you are in this particular point in your life.
Yeah.
So.
And I love that. And, you know, just to be clear for everyone listening, whether you join my stuff or not, I don't really care. Like what we're saying applies to anyone, no matter what stage you're at. And I think the big thing is just getting clarity on where you want to go and how quickly you want to go there.
Yeah.
And then like following the person who aligns with you and how they did it. Right. Because somebody else is going to be like, well, I did it this way and they ain't got kids. They ain't, you know, whatever. Right. Cause you're talking about faith and business. So it's like, bro, if you're trying to do this with faith, family, business and everything, you're going to probably align with me.
Yeah.
And if you're like wanting to go 80 hours a week and you want to, you know, stay single and you want to, you know, sleep around and party and you're not going to align with me. Like I would be like, bro, like I'm going to pretty much tell you to change your whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
And like, you know, there's somebody else that can teach you how to make money in the way you want to make money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think alignment is super important with, you know, choosing the path.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things that really attracted us to you, was because you're doing it. You're one of the few guys who are doing like what I consider like the right way, where you have like a family that you're prioritizing your family while you're building wealth. And I think I see a lot of guys who are like super successful, like Elon Musk or these other guys where like they'll work like 100 hours a week, but then like their whole life is consumed by their business. And then I think like from a business standpoint, I would love to change places with them, but from like a personal or family relationship side, I wouldn't want to be these guys. But when I look at how you built your business and like your life, I think you kind of have the balance where you've done it where you have God as a priority and your family as a priority while being successful in business, which to me is very rare. And so that's one of the things that I think that helped us to kind of gravitate to want to have you as like a mentor or a coach inside of our business.
No, and I appreciate that. And I look the same way when I'm hiring people, right? So like for me, I have one mentor that I listen to every single week. And that's one of my pastors. His name's Maddie. He's the head pastor at Wealthy Kingdom. So every day, every Wednesday at 6:30 a.m., Maddie and I talk on the phone without fail. And we've been doing that for like a year and a half. And, you know, for me, it's because I want to hear what he has to say, you know, just about things, because he has an unbiased view. He has a different view than entrepreneurs and everything, right? He's a pastor, but he's also, you know, he used to be a lead singer in a very famous Christian band. So like he understands dealing with fame. He understands, you know, some of the nuances. And so he's able to look at me and just be like, yo, this is where you're screwing up. This is what you should be doing. You know, and I just know it's an alignment with where I want to go, right? And always keeping God the priority, my family the priority. And he's not going to let me get off track. Cause like if I had you know, I don't know, just some rich guy, Elon Musk, right? If Elon was my mentor, which, you know, I don't even know what that would be like. That'd be crazy. Even like, I'm even thinking like, how would that even work? The way he sees the world is going to be so different that it might mess me up, because, you know, if he thinks we're living in a simulation and that like, you know, there's just all these things and, you know, his goal is to get to space. My goal is to get to heaven. It's just like, what do we got going on here? And it doesn't make Elon a bad person or anything. It's just like, you got to be super careful with who you're allowing to kind of like guide
talk into your life, right?
And that includes content too. Even if they're not your mentor that you're paying, dude, if you're listening to so-and-so's content 24/7 and they're not in alignment with your belief system, but you like them because they're entertaining or they're smart in one avenue. That slowly starts to trickle.
What's funny is, so I was listening to like, I think the YouTube algorithm kind of takes you off into tangents. So Fresh and Fit started popping in my podcast. And so I just started listening to, consuming a lot of their content. And then like a lot of it, there's like so much truth into what they're saying, like, you know, but they kind of like diminish kind of girls and to a certain point. And so like there's some, but then like I could slowly see like their worldview and their kind of what they're saying kind of slowly slip into like what the way that I view and I see things. It was like, so to a certain point where I didn't even realize it, but that's like my beliefs were like slowly shifting like a little bit. And then after I said some things where I was like, wait a minute, like that doesn't sound like me, but it was just because I was consuming so much of that content where it was just like, it was a little like moving in this direction. Like, you know, the thing is like, it's tricky because like 99% of it is like truth. Where like it's the the most dangerous parts is when like it's 99% true and like a little bit of like something a little funky. And so like it makes sense for like 99% of the time, but there's also that little funky thing that kind of slips in there. And so I found myself saying a few things that were like a little funky, and I was like, wait a minute, I had to like reframe and rethink it, and then kind of reanalyze where I was going with that thing, you know? So,
yeah. You know, it's funny, like I was listening to a message from, I think it's from Pastor Jabin at City Light here in Vegas. And he was saying that, you know, Satan doesn't create, okay? Only God creates. Satan just simply deceives and manipulates what's already there, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, you think about this, the easiest way to be deceived or manipulated is to take something that's, you know, seems to be true and like it's in alignment, and then just to twist it just a little bit. Like you wouldn't be deceived by something that's so blatantly different than what you believe. You're like, oh no, that ain't right. But if they're like, oh yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that. And then it comes to the point where it's like, but actually
a slight little tweak on it, right? So
yeah. And that's, I mean, this is why I always come back up to, you know, these other religions and stuff where it's like, well, you know, they're all pretty similar. And I'm like, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the great deception.
And you know what they say, like, what do they put in a rat poison?
What?
Great food. So like, I mean, so 99% of rat poison is great food, and they add that 1% of poison into it, right? So when you're trying to attract rats, you want 99% great food and a little bit of poison. So
dang, I didn't know that. That's true, but that's exactly what it is, dude. That 1% is what gets you, and people don't realize it. It's crazy. So in your business, right? You know, you quit your W-2. You were an engineer,
software developer,
developer,
engineer,
And how old were you when you quit?
2 years ago.
Well, you said 2019, I thought.
Yeah,
or you started.
I started in 2019.
Then you quit. 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So how old?
41, I think so.
How scary is it quitting when you're 41 years old? A career you've had obviously for a long time.
Well, the thing was, because of real estate investing, honestly, real estate investing changed my life. So at that point when I quit, because had some success, I was actually making more from my rentals than I was making at my W-2. So it was a very like safe way to quit, where I kind of grinded while I was working my W-2 to build up a rental portfolio, fix and flipping, doing the burst strategy to kind of build up passive income. And so at that point, I was actually making more from my rental properties passively than I was making at my W-2. So it was like it wasn't like a very scary thing for me to.
How were you buying so many rentals? Like, you know, to replace it that quick. You hear about people trying to do it, but it rarely happens.
So when I first started, I didn't have any money, or basically I had no money.
Where did all your money go if you're a software guy?
Well, honestly, so living in Hawaii, and so
that's true.
I mean, the cost of living is a little higher, and I'm not the most frugal person, I think. So I go out to eat or whatever. So I'm not the most, basically I was making enough just to kind of get by in Hawaii. And so I didn't have, a very, very, very small savings, had a small 401k. Long story short, I borrowed a little bit from my 401k. I took a bunch of personal lines of credit to kind of have some cash to play with. Started using a burr strategy out of state in Indianapolis, where you can buy houses for 50 grand.
Okay.
Built up the first year we did 6 burrs. To build a little bit of cash flow. Each burr gives you about $200 a door ish kind of on cash flow. And then I was like, dude, I just need 50 more of these, and I'll have $10,000 a month to kind of hit my goal, right? So I was like, but then the problem with that is I've got 150-ish of borrowed money that can kind of recycle to do the burrs in Indianapolis. So I was like, if I had 500, I could do 20 of these a year, because I kind of figured out the burr strategy in Indianapolis. I just need more money to kind of keep on recycling. So I was because I started doing the burr strategy out of state, it was basically a burr is a fix and flip that you refinance as opposed to keeping, right? So I was why don't I take the skills that I learned as a burr, bring it to Hawaii, where it's a terrible cash flow state, but it's great for fix and flipping. And so I'll make a few make some money in Hawaii, get to 200 or 300, bring it back to the Indy, and then I'll go to my 50 rentals or whatever, So that was the original strategy. But I got very lucky in Hawaii, where we actually found 2 or 3 burrs in our first deals, because a combination of COVID, a combination of just finding these multifamily properties in the back end that supercharged my rental income, where I hit my $10,000 a month from the combination of the Indianapolis properties and the Hawaii properties to kind of get to my cash flow number faster than I expected.
So you started, buying these Hawaii properties, and they were cash flowing good.
Yeah.
And then at what point does flipping come into play, mentorship and all that stuff?
So, I mean, started flipping in. I was trying to flip, but I got lucky and jumped into some bursts. So we basically it cashed on the back end. We got some deep equity. And so at that point, things were going pretty good, starting to scale. And then I had some other friends who were kind of just doing the same journey at the same time. These Zasha, my friends.
So you knew Zasha before she quit and stuff?
I think all of us started around the same time. I think the bigger podcast was just kind of taking off. People were listening to these things and having some success in real estate. And so the Hawaii community is very cool, where everybody it's like a small knit community where we all kind of know each other. And so we talk shop, we have friendships. And so we kind of see what other guys are doing. And so I saw Zasha, she was just kind of getting started, and then she started to gain some traction. She joined some coaching programs. I think one of them was yours.
Yep.
And I had another friend, these guys, Kamahe and Tristan, they're kind of just getting started. They're getting some traction. They joined a coaching program, and then that kind of supercharged their trajectory. And so I kind of saw, these coaching programs are actually helping these guys to kind of scale and kind of get to the next level. And so that's where it kind of opened my eyes to see the value of coaching. And prior to that, I was just anti-coaching. I was like, I can just figure it out by myself. I've had some success just kind of reading books and just listening to podcasts.
But let me add to that, guys like you at that point are the hardest ones to reach because, dude, I mean, you have had success. Who's to say, that you could have done it better or whatever, right? You're doing better than everyone else, and I relate to that because I was the same way. I was like, bro, I'm killing it. Tell me somebody else that's doing what I'm doing. Along with playing pro baseball, with, doing it the way I was. And so, success kind of makes you somewhat uncoachable, especially if it's your first time having a lot of success.
So I believe I would have reached this point without coaching. Where I am today, I think I would have guaranteed gotten here just through hard work, reading and doing it by myself. It just would have taken me 7 years, right? So the whole point of coaching is to kind of speed up the process to get you to your point faster. And so I think the coaching helps you to untangle yourselves a little bit faster or kind of tweak a little bit of accountability, but different things where it's not necessarily going to make you successful. It's just going to get you to your success faster. And I think you're buying time. I think so. When I realized how coaching actually helps you to hit your goals faster, that's where I saw the value in coaching. And so it wasn't that. I always believed in myself. I think anything that I've done, I've always had some success. I don't need coaching to be success, but if I had coaching, I'll get to that point faster.
Yeah. And I think that is the element for you because obviously you already had success. And so your thought process was just accelerating success.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there are people who would literally not have any success. It's either they're going to be stuck doing what they've always done, or they're going to get coached and it's going to change their life.
If you haven't heard, WealthCon is coming back to Las Vegas April 18th to the 20th, and I believe it's going to be our biggest one yet. We're going to try and fill the Caesars Palace with 2,000 top-level real estate investors and entrepreneurs. I've got amazing speakers like Neil Patel, Tim Grover, Dan Martell, Pace Morby, and many others coming, and it's going to be great. So if you want to get tickets today, we got some special deals going on. All you got to do is text me at 725-444-5244. We'll get you info on what kind of tickets we got, all the way from general admission to our diamond level tickets, where you're able to network with the speakers, go backstage, ask them questions, and then have a dinner with all of us in a really intimate setting. It's going to be great. So if you want to get tickets, text me at 725-444-5244.
Well, what I've realized after the coaching that I did have is that certain things that I've done, I wouldn't have done. So even some of our one-on-one conversations, the things that you've kind of coached me to do or to take on, if I didn't have these conversations, I wouldn't have done them at all. And so so to take that back, I probably would not have had the same success or done the same things I had if I didn't have the coaching that I did have. Although I would have had success, it just wouldn't have been the same. Or
it might not have been at the same level, and it definitely wouldn't have been as fast. Yeah. No, I agree with that. So. And I think the same way with me. Now at this point, whenever I want to do a new goal, the first thing I ever do is I'm like, yo, who's the best? Who's the best? Can I hire them? Can I partner with them? Can I, learn from, can I get them on the podcast so I can at least pick their brain for an hour?
Yeah.
That's literally how I operate now. And so, I've just seen it time and time again. Because if I'm going to go try and do something I've never done before, right? Even if it's in real estate, let's just say like, you know, I've never made $20 million a year flipping houses.
Yeah.
So like, what if I find somebody who has, you know, and he can just tell me, like if that became a goal, the first thing I would do is I'd be like, well, obviously like I have a good idea of what I need to do, but I don't know the pitfalls I'm going to face as I execute this idea. So let me talk to this guy. He's already done it. He's going to save me a decade of problems that he already had to have gone through.
Yeah. And I think there's also levels to coaching, right? I think actually I kind of learned this from you. So there's like the first level is you're just getting information where you can pick up a course, you can just read something. It's kind of like a one-way transaction where you're just like learning things, right? So that's like the first level. The second level that you mentioned is the consulting, where you're having a meeting with somebody like individually. They're dissecting what you're doing in your business with your goals, and they're tweaking it to kind of get you unstuck from where you are. And so it's more like a personalized coaching where you're actually applying it to your life. And then the third level is kind of helping you to be accountable daily to kind of make sure that your goals are being hit, and like you're actually consistently making the moves that need to be hit. And so I think coaching levels, there's like different levels of coaching that you can get, and depending on where how much you pay and what's like your goals are, you kind of want to have like different levels of what you want to like be a part of.
Yeah, 100%. It just really depends on, like you said, where you're at. If you're somebody who has a tough time holding yourself accountable. Like for instance, to give everyone a simple example, right? We all want better health. So there's lots of ways we can go about having better health, right? So in stage 1, you could just start watching YouTube and like looking up workouts. You could find a diet online, and honestly, you're going to just guess that this is the right one you just chose because you don't know, right? You're going to hear all these different pieces of information where they're like, well, they say I should do CrossFit. He says I should do this. This guy says I should just run marathons. And you're like, you got to really just hope you're really good at deciphering information because there's endless amounts of information, right? And then, you know, you're just going to kind of throw it on the wall and see if it works. And that's only if you're actually able to stick with it too. Because most people who even like spend all this time researching and doing all this crap, right? They spend however many weeks, months, or even years researching before they ever do anything. So that's a wasted period of time in research. Then they try it and it doesn't work initially because nothing works initially. And then they quit. Or they just keep doing the wrong thing over and over again, wondering why it's not working, right? So that's usually stage 1 for most people. Very few can actually take a book, a podcast, a YouTube video, and anything and just be like, that's it. I know exactly what to do.
Apply it, right?
I'm going to go do it. Here's how it's working. Boom. Very few can take generalized information that's not specific to them and do it. But, you know, let's just say, so that's with working out. You're just hoping you pick the right meal plan. You might have picked vegan and now you're screwed. You know, like, so good luck, especially if you've never succeeded. Now, if you're already successful and you have a framework to work from and a belief system and results, getting new information is a little bit different because now you can see it and say, no, that's BS. That's not going to work. That works. Okay, actually, that might work based on what I've already seen. So if you're just starting out, information usually doesn't do anything for you. If you're successful, it can. Okay. Now that's stage 2 of, you know, like we said, consulting. It's like, all right, I'm going to go just hire a fitness coach. This person's just going to create me the exact meal plan I need. He's going to get me the exact supplements I need. He's going to, you know,
so he's going to look at what you have going on first, right? So he's going to tailor it to your specific needs. Like your supplements are going to be different than like my
100%,
supplements, right?
Yeah.
So.
He's like, Ryan, okay, you're already fit, dude. What are your goals? You know? And I'll be like, well, dude, I want to get freaking jacked. I want to just keep hitting golf balls way far. I don't want to be so jacked that I can't hit the golf ball. And he's like, all right, so based on what you're telling me, you want to get jacked, lose weight, still maintain flexibility. You know, you're an entrepreneur, Ryan, so you got a pretty busy lifestyle. I know you ain't going to meal prep, right? I'm like, heck no, I ain't going to meal prep. He's like, all right, you can afford to get, you're rich. You can afford to get, you know, these delivered to you. All right, cool. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create your meal plan. And actually, I'm not even going to create your meal plan. I'm just actually going to customize the meals and we're going to have them sent to your house. Here's your workout. Just follow it. And that's it. Do this for the next 90 days and you're good. And that would be consulting. And then it still requires me to have discipline, to eat the food, to execute the plan. And everything else. The third level would be that same guy doing that, but then saying, hey, log me into your Foodie Fit, or not Foodie Fit. That's who I use. They get a free shout out for meal prep. Log me into your MyFitnessPal so I can see you inputting your macros every day and holding yourself accountable. Also put in this app, your weights and everything else, so I can track that you're actually doing your workouts. Every week, let's talk. You're going to track your weight. I'm going to look at it. We're going to adjust your calories and everything as we go along. We're going to take progress pics every week. And the next 90 days, we're going.
Yeah.
Every single day accountability. Like, which one's going to get the best result?
I feel like for like entrepreneurs or real estate investing in general, the one thing I always see people get hung up is the accountability, where just people they get hyped up after an event, right? They're like, I want to do this. I want to do this. They go really hard for the next 6 weeks and they can just kind of die out because they don't see results. But it's like that day-to-day like motivation or the day-to-day like action that you have to do consistently while you're not seeing results in the very beginning. That's so difficult, I think, for people
super hard because nothing comes right away. Like even this workout scenario we're talking about, you ain't gonna like go get jacked this week.
Yeah.
You'll be lucky if you look different after 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, right? A month, you'll probably start to see some results. But 90 days from now, you could be completely transformed, which is a very short amount of time in the grand scheme of, usually what it takes to get results in something important like real estate or whatever, right? So, I try to tell people this, like at WealthCon, we'll have 1,000+ people. And by the way, you guys should come to the next WealthCon. You can go check it out, wealthcon.org. But I'll be like, look, guys, we spoke to you from stage. Like you got so much valuable information and, you made some great connections. That's awesome. But you guys next week are going to be back to your normal everyday lives. And what are you going to do when you're not in this environment? You're back to your old environment that has produced those same results. Do you really think you can overcome it with no help and everything else? I don't care how much great information we gave you. And which, by the way, in an event like WealthCon, we're not teaching, like one specific thing. Like, hey, you're coming here to learn how to flip houses. And, this session is analyzing deals. Like we do that in our workshops. So if anyone wants to, learn that way, we have 2-day workshops for just house flipping, 2-day workshops for content creation. WealthCon is about the networking, the relationships, getting amazing speakers from all across and like getting this very broad, diverse set of knowledge. And people love it. It's just a different way of learning. But I'm like, when you go home, odds are, if you have no system in place, no accountability, no coaching, you're not going to really do anything with what you just heard. And that's unfortunately what the case usually is.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. I think just it's so easy to be on an emotional high, but then you need a community or people around you to kind of hold you to do the day-to-day boring tasks, I think. And just like the weekly or daily accountability with somebody, whether it's in a coaching call or with like a small peer group, is something that's so vital for especially a new investor to try and have some success. So just like that, I just like that. That's like the most important piece, I think, for new investors, who just have somebody to help you grind through the day-to-day. So.
That's the hard part, right? Like, ideas are simple, information's easy. Executing is where the money's at.
I always have a conversation with guys who are like, so as a software developer, we can make apps and stuff, right? So someone's always like, I've got a great idea for this app, and can you build this up for me? And they come to me with their different ideas. And so most of the time they're trash ideas. I'm like, this will never work and stuff. But what I realized from just kind of processing through these different kinds of businesses and talking to these game plans with different guys is that ideas are a dime a dozen. There's a ton of ideas that are going to make money, but then their true value is the execution of them. And so even house flipping or real estate investing is very simple. It's like you buy a house at a discount, you fix it up and you sell it. The concepts and the ideas, nothing new. There's 1,000 people who are doing this right now who are very successful, but the idea is not where the value is. It's all in the execution of it.
Yeah. And in the execution, when you're actually playing for something. I had a guy, he had seen me at a meetup or something, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to go all in on Forex trading or something. And I was like, okay, why? Because he's a real estate guy. He's been in real estate for 20 years. He's like, oh, well, I'm crushing it. And I was like, well, how much did you make? And he was like, you know, he said something like $200,000-$300,000 last year. I was like, oh, really? Well, dang, dude, I'm mistaken. Then yeah, you should probably do that. And I was like, so what are you going to do with the money? Are you going to bet bigger? Or like, what are you going to, he's like, well, that was in my, my play account, my trading account, you know, but like, had I been, I would have, I was like, bro, then you haven't made anything. And he's like, well, yeah, no, I haven't made anything yet. I'm like, bro, no. Okay. Your fake trading account doesn't mean crap. All right. Why didn't you bet real money if you're so confident? Like, so it's like people think things are a game. It's like, no, bro, execution is come game time. I don't need your practice player game. I don't need you in your video games. Real world. Yeah. Execution. And, you know, it dawned on me that like people obviously struggle with that, right? Because they get all hyped up. They talk the talk. They go to meetups. They look and feel like they belong. And it's like, but when it comes to actually real world execution, they don't do crap. And I just tell people that. I'm like, yeah, like you explained, flipping a house is actually very simple in theory. Playing in the NBA is simple in theory too. You know, you dribble the ball. Okay. You're just not allowed to pick it up with both hands. If you do, you must shoot or pass it. And then you just put it through the hoop. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. It's super easy. And then, you know, real world comes and all these guys are 7 foot and you're 5'5". You're unathletic. You can't jump. You get tired going from one end of the court to the other. And you can't even dribble when there's defense. And you can't even get a shot up in these NBA guys because they're so good. And guess what? That's the world. Yeah. The world is always against you. Somebody else is trying to get the deal. Somebody else is talking to the seller. You know, you get flagged for not having permits. You get sued. Like the world's always against you. And that's where execution comes into play. No, yeah, that's totally true. I think just the thing, and so like when you go into, I think to the different meetups and like you're talking to different guys, it's the value I see of having seen, like talking to guys who have actually done it. When they tell me something, it's just very different than somebody who hasn't been there. And so I think when you so that was one of the values I think we got out of like the All-Star program was getting in these rooms of other guys who are also doing the same things on our level. And then just having like really like high level conversations on like, what are you doing in your marketing? What are you doing on your like permitting issues and things? And so there's a difference between like, sometimes you'll get advice from guys at meetups who are like, oh, you should do this and this and this, right? But like they've never actually done it. It's just like what they read or they've heard on a forum. Versus like a guy who's like, no, this actually happened to me. This is how I solved it. Then you just take the advice. And so like they could give you the exact same advice. But one has no credibility. The guy who's never done it, they're just like, you just take it like differently, right? So like, but the guys who's actually done it, then you're able to take that advice just because it seems to be worth more. And I think sometimes like you might give me advice like, dude, you should start a meetup, right? And so other people have told us they're like, Dan, you should start a meetup. But like when you tell me that, it comes off very different than with like a random stranger or somebody else who tell me the exact same advice. Yeah. But even then you still might not do it. Yeah. I mean, but the thing is so it's timing. Yeah. 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 Because there were other priorities at the time when I told you that. It's like, are you going to just drop everything you got going to go start a meetup when you still have these other things that need to get finished first? And we had a few different like interactions where you told me that I should do something and I disagreed with it. And so like in the beginning, it's like, you tell me to do it, but just because you're telling me I don't like blindly like, you still are using discernment. I'm still processing it. And I think like maybe like, you don't know like my exact situation. Like, so like you don't have all the pieces, right? And so even though like you're ahead, you might not know like everything that's involved, and so like some of the things he told me to do, I'm like, Ryan told me to do this, but I don't think it's like super important. And then like later on, I click like, okay, actually it makes sense why you told me to do this, but it took like a few different sessions before it actually like translated or kind of like seeped into like why like the pieces like didn't like connect for me. And so no, and I'm the same way. You know, people way ahead of me tell me things, and there are times when I receive it, and there are times where I'm like, well, that doesn't apply to me. My business is different. I'm this, and look, sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, and this just comes with discernment and everything you're doing. And, at the end of the day though, what I actually have realized I'll do is I'll at least try it. So, I want to at least try what they have to say. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, I don't have to wonder whether or not it's going to work. I'll give an example. Like, we were trying to increase the show rate for our challenges, and the show rate was really bad. Conversions were great for anyone that showed up, but we're like, man, we got to figure out how to do the show rate. So like, I was going with the guy who was helping run them, and he's the expert, And I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I don't agree with what you think the problem is, but I am willing to try it. And look, I hope it works out. Like we all want it to work out, but if it doesn't, then also I'm going to say, well, I didn't think it would, but you know, it's not like I'm smarter or anything. It's just like my gut tells me it's not. And sure enough, I was right each time. Now, granted, that just made my more confidence in my decision making of, hey, you know what? We are going to do this my way. I'm going to lean on this way. I'm going to try it. And, you know, and these weren't things that were like, hey, you know, it takes a long time to figure out whether or not it's working. No, it's like instant. It's like, hey, this worked or didn't.
You should tell whether or not it's working or not right away.
Right away. And so, you know, we even tried doing one on Sunday. He's like, well, you know, we could do this. And I'm like, dude, I do not want to do this Sunday night. This sounds like the worst thing ever. But I will try it based on, you know, if it does, it does. Like, I don't know. Because naturally, I wouldn't do it. That wouldn't be something I want to test. Because actually, I'm hoping it doesn't work because I don't want, if it does work, then I'm like, dang, dude, like, what do I do? Right. So anyways, it didn't work, thankfully. And my gut ended up being right in this case. Now, my gut's also been wrong in other cases. So it's like, but in all the cases, I at least got to find out. That's the big key. I got to find out who was right, and I'll have no ego one way or the other. If I was right, well, maybe I'll have a little more ego because I'm like, I knew it. Other times when I was wrong, I'm like, dang, well, either way I win because now I know there's a better way to do it.
But even if like you don't apply it or you don't take it into account right away, it kind of like sparks like a creative thinking. And so like sometimes like you hear an idea and you're like, actually, I'm not going to try that, but it's very close to something else. So like I'm going to tweak it slightly to my circumstance. But it's always like those little bunny trails where like you hear something that you haven't heard before that kind of helps you to just kind of like start that process of like, actually, let's try this or this, right? And so just having like an outside presence of someone who has had success kind of give you some different ideas. It's almost like a little mini brainstorming session for you to kind of like come up with different things that might actually work too, right? So
yeah, 100%. One thing I will say though about just mentors and everything is I'm not a fan when somebody only tells you there's one way to do something.
Yeah.
Because even when people are at WealthCon, they're like, Ryan, should I get this program or that program? And like, you know, is this what's best for me? I'm like, look, I don't know enough about your situation. You haven't told me what you have going on, what's your experience, how much money you got. I couldn't tell how much time you got to actually do this, why you want to do it, what are your end goals? Like, I don't know any of that to be able to tell you this is the best thing for you. And even in one-on-one and stuff, it's just, I'm going to always tell you something that I think is best for you, even if it's different from what I did.
No,
and I see so many other people that are just like, this is the only way to do it. This is how I did it. This is how you should do it. And it's like, dude, how I did it is not how you should do it.
I think sometimes, you can kind of get into like this thing where you're just, it's because you've done it this way and you completely believe in your path that you just think everybody should do it this way, right? When in actuality, especially in investing, there's so many different ways to do it. And it's so nuanced depending on the person's skill, experience, and like where they want to go. But it's just like I think like also sometimes, I think some of these coaches like actually realize that they're not the best way, but they just want to have like either just like their branding is so strong that they just want to make sure like kind of bully people into like their path just because like that. It's like they just want to like get the, I don't know, like the kind of funnel you into like their strategy, right? So
yeah, and maybe they don't know any other strategies, so they're not able to teach anything else. So all they can teach is their way. But
one of the things I like with good coaching or people who have like these programs is showing you what like the problems with their approach. And so like, let's say like you teach a fix and flipping course, then like, here's why like fix and flipping is not great because you're not going to own the real estate at the end of the day, or the different things where like
there's risk.
They give you like the downside as well as the upside. I think that's really helpful for me to kind of see, so I can kind of really weigh the pros and cons and really apply it to my situation. Like for instance, like the BRRRR strategy, it's not great if you don't have like, if you need cash right away or the different kinds of things, right? But wholesaling is not great if you're not good at, let's say, marketing, or like you want to spend like a ton of time in the business. And so there's always these pros and cons to every strategy. But I think when guys are kind of lay out to me like these are like the downsides of things, it helps me to give them more trust or really weigh out the different options better.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you know, like I did I'll link to this video down below for everyone, but I did a training for 2024, how to get started in real estate in 2024, beginner's guide. And in that, I basically went through the different types of people and which path is best for them. And it sparked me because, I don't know, some dude made something. He was like, this viral post of, it was like an Apple Note thing. And it was like, Ryan Pineda says you should do this. This guy says you should do that. This guy says you should do this. They all are full of it. They're all just promoting their own agenda. And I was like, first off, okay, you know, you can dye your hair, like because then they made a follow-up one. It was like, Ryan says you should dye your hair for views or dye your hair blue. And I was like, well, first off, you can dye your hair red too. All right. Second off, okay, wholesaling is great. If you are broke and you're trying to like replace your income, you have no choice. You're flipping or wholesaling. If anyone tells you you should be buying rentals, they're an idiot. And I will stand by that 1000%. $200 ain't going to change your life. You better figure out how to flip and wholesale, because 20 grand this month will go a lot further than $200. And you can always buy rentals down the road. But then I said, look, if you're already well off, you got a great job, you like where you're at and making good money, well then buy rentals. You don't need to go build a flipping and wholesaling business, buy rentals. If you got a really successful business and you're a millionaire and you're like, dude, I'm thinking about getting into real estate. Well, bro, just double down on your current business, whatever that is, and go invest your money in a fund. Like, don't even worry about trying to go build a new company or research deals in Indianapolis. Like, think about it. If you're making $1 million a year with your AC company, and now you're like trying to find the next great market, spend that energy building the business. Just go give your money to a fund. And so, you know,
I think also
I'm agnostic.
I think also this is actually some advice I got from you was like I want to do so many things, you know, like I want to do commercial, I want to do multifamily, I want to do fix and flipping, I want to do birds out of state. There's so many things that like I want to do as an entrepreneur. But you said like, hey, focus on things that are bigger than your current opportunity. And so like if my current opportunity is making, let's say, $1 million a year, don't go chase something that makes you like a 500,000 or less. It has to be making more than $1 million, right? Because I put so much time and energy into this one funnel or this one thing. Why I'm going to like diversify my focus and try and build something over here if it's going to make me less. And so like the pointing in cases like, let's say you've got $1 million business. If you get into wholesaling and fix and flipping, it's better to just double down on your business and try and get that 1 million to 2 million, as opposed to let's start from the bottom and grow this thing up to $1 million, maybe get down to $2 million, right?
Exactly. Because it's always going to take time and energy to start a new thing. So whether you realize it or not, I don't care how good of the people you have in place. We were just talking about this on our 101. It's like, okay, the best way I can simplify this to people, and this might be the most important thing I say all podcasts, so listen up, okay? But comment below, I'm listening, if you're here at this point, because I think this part's going to really help you guys figure out how to navigate the different stages. So at some point, right, you're going to be grinding, and let's just use the $1 million mark, and you're going to hit a goal, right? And you're going to have a choice at this goal, okay? Say it's $1 million. And your choice is, hey, do I try and just navigate this, you know, and grow it even bigger? Or can I take a step back and allow it to just sustain itself? Maybe it grows a little bit, but it's not going to grow to this new level, right? If you take a step back and kind of like now let the business quote unquote run itself, you know, you then have to decide, what am I going to do with my time? For most entrepreneurs, they're like, I'm going to start a new thing and develop that. That's great. You have either option in both. For me, I've gone both ways in my career. You know, I focused solely on flipping houses for a long time and then got it to $3-4 million. And it was like, you know what? I'm pretty good there because I hit a plateau.
Yeah.
And it was like, I could try and break through the plateau, but I'm going to have to like work really hard to do it. I'm going to have to, you know, go into another state. I'm going to have to master new marketing channels. I'm going to have to hire more. Like there was a lot, I knew there was a lot to get into it. And I was like, honestly, it's not worth the headache or the risk to go take on more flips and debt and everything. I would rather focus on this thing and just kind of like let this thing run itself. That's exactly what I did for years.
But you had a different, when you changed like courses to do new thing, the new thing was a bigger opportunity than what your flipping was.
Correct.
Right? So.
And I said, social media is the new thing. It's going to be, you know, a very big opportunity. And so, you know, ended up working out, and education ended up becoming an 8-figure opportunity. And, you know, it was great. And then I've done multiple other opportunities. Now I'm at the point where I'm going back into both and saying, you know what? No more new opportunities. I am ready now to take both of these to the next level. I believe that now with this new business model of going, nationwide wholesaling, we can be 8 figures easily. I believe now with what I'm building on the marketing sales side and everything with events, we can get to multiple 8 figures easily. But it's going to require me really pushing both of them to do it. And so the reason I mention this is because I have lots of opportunities every single day to do different things. And I think a great trademark or a great, trademark of a good entrepreneur is somebody who's willing to put their focus on the right thing at that moment in time. At that moment in time, it was fine to plateau my flipping business and focus here. That was the right move. And now I understand I got to go put my energy into this. Now, guess what? On social media, I'm going to kind of like accept the plateau. Like I'm not over here trying to grow the podcast. Because like, here's the thing, right? Let's just say the podcast was my number one priority above all. And I didn't have those other things. I could spend all my hours trying to go get the best guest in the world, hire recruiters, do all these things, train and script and research every single guest and like become a better host who's more informed and like really just, I could blow it up to being, let's say, a top 10 podcast. If that's all I focus my energy on.
It's going to take all your energy away from the other things that you're also doing, right? So I think that's the one thing I think I struggle as an investor or a business owner is where should I allocate my time that's going to give me the maximum ROI and for how long should I do it, right? And I think...
And ROI short-term and long-term. That's the thing to think about.
And the thing is like when I first started, like the best use of my time was different in different phases. So when I first started, there was just so much learning and like so analyzing deals was like my number one priority where I just want to analyze like 100 deals a day just to get better at that and also to make offers, right? But at this point, now my time is better spent trying to be growing as a leader or social media, but it's always a challenge where like it helps to have like a peer group or something around you to help you kind of like see like your blind spots. So but like where should you really focus your time or energy? And so I think these monthly coaching calls with you is like, I come before you with like, here's my plan, here's my things. Where should I put all my time and energy? And you're like, do this, and this. And so I like for the next month, I'll just grind super hard in that area and just try to make sure like I focus on this and get this to the point where it's like, it's all solved and complete. Then I can come back and say like, hey, next month, like, here's what I did. Here's the game plan. What do you think I should do this? But it's helpful to have these checkpoints with like a more experienced coach or investor to just say like, here's where you should focus or put your time and energy because I'm going to grind super hard in one direction, but if I'm going in the wrong direction, it's not going to really get me the results that I really want or the long term.
Yeah, so. No, 1,000%. And that's why it's hard to pick because like everyone needs to understand how important it is deciding where you're going to spend your time because a lot of things are going to dictate that decision. The market, your desires, your cash, your, whatever's going on in life, trends.
Yeah.
So, for instance, it's like whatever's trending at the moment, if the real estate market, in 2020, 2021, early 2022 was so hot, it was like, guys, we got to throw everything we got at flipping houses and everything. Like this is a trend. This is something that's, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And now it's just very neutral. We have apartments in syndication. I've told you this in multifamily. You're like, dude, I really want to get into multifamily. Everything. I'm like, well, look, right now it's really hard to raise capital. It's hard to pencil out deals.
Yeah.
Is that the best? Multifamily is great, but is that the best use of your time at this very moment? Could you be spending your time on one of the other avenues that's going to give you a better return because they're in more favorable conditions?
Yeah.
And this is how I try to look at everything. With all of my businesses. And, for me, it's like right now, what's going to move the needle more than anything? It's me rebuilding my marketing and sales department because that impacts every business. And it's a lot of work, man. I got to train everyone. I got to rebuild culture. I've got to be involved. I got to really exert my will on everything. And I love it because I haven't done that in a long time. And I know it's like already producing a lot of fruit and it's going to just be amazing. But it won't be forever. I don't know how long this will be the best use of my time. Once the foundation is built, it's going to get to a certain point and then it's going to plateau again. Yeah. And once it plateaus, then I have to make a decision.
I like to also, I think when you're like really dived into focus on something, it's like let's say you have like 5 hours in a day, right? If you put like 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, there's also like that context switching where like you have to kind of switch different like avenues where you're losing time in that context and you're not like really maximizing that time. But if you just spend those 5 hours all in one thing, there's something like magical where it just kind of compounds like your results. And I just see like when I like just like really like go all in on one thing, I dream about it. I think about it all the time. It's like it like absorbs like and consumes your entire day. It's just like there's like these little small things that somehow they just magically like 10x as opposed to if you just do like half kind of thing. And like, so I think that focus on that one lane until it's like really like up and running, then you switch complete focus to the next thing has been like really helpful for me just to kind of make sure like each arm of like my business or the different things are up and running.
Yeah. I give that advice to anyone I can because it's like they see successful entrepreneurs and people who have got a lot of things going on and they assume that they just kind of all grew at the same time. No, that's not what happened. They were mastering one skill at a time. And so for me, I spent 5+ years just only flipping houses, mastering that skill. Then I spent years just only doing social media, that skill. Then I spent years throwing these events and doing education, and I was focused on that. Now, and I've said it before, my only focus is on building a great, digital marketing side. And, in turn, sales goes right with that. And so I've never actually formally had to create sales training or processes. And I just kind of have always just given tips and things that I intuitively know. I'm like, yeah, this is how you sell, like, X, Y, Z. But now that I'm actually training them, it's forcing me to make curriculum and blueprints and everything like I do with everything else.
Yeah.
Because I know it. I just haven't put it all in order and everything. And now I'm like, oh man, like this is actually very simple. The first thing is knowing the product. And that didn't even occur to me. I'm like, well, duh, we're going to assume they know the product. That's dumb. Like why would be like a realtor going into a house, but he doesn't know what the property's worth or the address. We should put an offer on this. It's like, how are you going to put an offer? You don't even know anything about it. But it didn't occur to me that was happening with our salespeople. I'm like, you don't even know.
You have to kind of like, once you start teaching or kind of like giving instruction, then it kind of clarifies like where the holes are. Or
exactly.
And it helps you to also process what's going on too. I think a lot of times I feel like when I'm helping like explain something to somebody else on our team or like another like investor, it's like when I tell them like how to do something, it really like, I'm like, wow, that was really good. Like I didn't realize I knew that until like I explained to them and I kind of processing through some different ideas. And I'm like, actually, now that I told them this, I'm actually going to do it myself. And so just like that act of just teaching or kind of coaching is actually helps you to kind of become a better like investor or doing that what I think that you're actually doing, right?
Yeah, 100%. So wealthy sales coming soon. No, I don't know how long it'll take, but I mean, that's just usually what happens, right? It's like I build something for myself and then inevitably we end up teaching it or giving it or whatever, right? And it's like, yeah, I do have a sales philosophy that not many people have. And it stems from selling so many different things. It's like, bro, I've sold in multiple industries. I've sold from stage. I've sold on webinars. I've sold, 1,000 couches. I've negotiated hundreds of flips. I've raised, over $100 million. Like I've done a lot of different selling in living rooms, on a podcast. It's like, yeah, there's an art to it that I have that's worked for me. And it's very different than what everyone else teaches. And so I'm excited to get them on my, into a curriculum for my own team.
Yeah. I feel like just taking like a lot of different sales courses myself personally, it seems like everybody kind of has like a different philosophy of like the different like strategies and philosophies on how to sell. Is there like, do you think like it's the same across the board, like certain principles, or do you think it actually would be tailored?
Well, I'll tell you this, like that's actually the one thing I never like took training on. So I've been trained on marketing. I've been trained on real estate, hiring people, ops, social media. I've never actually been trained on sales, and I know them all. I mean, I've talked to Andy Elliott, Jeremy Miner, and all these guys, and everything they say, I'm like, yeah, I know that. Like, but I've never gone through their programs or anything. My team has gone through many programs. I'm like, hey, whose thing do you want me to buy? All right, you guys go through it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I already know how to sell. So, at the end of the day, if I had to define how I am teaching our guys to sell, number one is product. And that could be for home run offer. It could be for wealthy investor. It could be for anything. And it's just understanding the product intimately and knowing the ins and outs of it, who needs it, what's the avatar, what are the objections people have to that product, and, like understanding that they're coming to us for help. So they need something, right? Or else why would they book a call? Why would they do anything, right? So like just getting them to understand the product and believe in it. And they need to hear the success stories. They need to see the people firsthand, because if you can develop conviction, that will supersede everything script wise. That's all that matters, right? And that's actually why this is the last thing I've ever built, because I always was a firm believer that, your product and marketing are the most important things, right? If you have a great product, people are going to buy it and refer it and everything else. And if your marketing is really good, aka people know, like, and trust you, then your sales team don't even have to be that good. And that's kind of like what it's been to this point. It's if the product and the marketing are so strong, people are just going to already naturally go to it. And it's just like, at that point, you can win with average sales.
It's almost like an administrative task just to like get people enrolled. There are people like, let's just say laydowns that, you get, but no, I mean, look, they still do have to sell. You still have to learn how to handle objections. But I always say, and this is why I've always said, like, I'm like, dude, you guys are soft. And here's the reason why. Okay. Other salespeople are used to cold calling, door knocking. People have no idea who they are. You like, think about this. In most sales calls, the salesperson has to learn how to develop trust very quickly, because the customer has no idea who they are and what they do. They got to explain why I'm door knocking. Have you heard that your solar bill's going up? They got to explain why they need solar. So you're like having to do all this pre-stuff before you can ever get to the actual pitch and the product and everything else. You got to like, they're not qualified. And then versus us, it's like, no, bro, they already seen me. They know they want to get in real estate or content. They know that like they're coming to you warm, and we think they're cold because they're not like super warm. It's just, so for me, it's all about perspective and understanding that, okay, number one, okay, you're working a different type of lead than somebody who door knocks and they have no idea what we do or what. So now it's like just understanding the different avatars and what products they need, how you mix and match them together, because we have so many different things. It's both good and bad. It's good in that we can truly get somebody the perfect thing that they need. It's bad in that you got to actually know more things instead of just, we sell one thing here, and you just like, have this scripted thing. I think that's a good point too, though, because like depending on like how you reach the lead or how you're interacting with them is really going to dictate your sales process. And so I think a lot of like the training we go to or we watch is like, you're door knocking somebody cold, or you're making a cold phone call, or you're going to somebody who may or may not want to sell their house. And so there's a lot of like different nuances on that front end before you even get to the part where they have a problem and they're actually like a warm lead. And so once you get to the warm lead, that's like a whole separate like set of processes or problems that you're solving versus like the initial part of you just got to get them qualified or get them interested. Then once they're warm, now you got to actually close the deal. So you guys, it sounds like on your guys' side, you're dealing with basically just closing the deal as opposed to like the whole
basically all of our leads are inbound leads, right? So we're talking about outbound leads would be, they have no idea who you are, what you do, why they even need their thing, or why they want to sell their home, right? Everything we have is inbound. So it's like, bro, I need a cash offer on my home. Right? That's why I tell them, I'm like, you guys have the easiest leads ever. They're all inbound, just so you guys know. So anytime you freaking complain about a lead, I'm gonna go make you door knock and cold call people, and then you'll see what real leads look like. Okay. So, and that comes from perspective. Like I said, like if your perspective is you've only worked here and just been spoon-fed leads that are warm, you just think that, oh, this guy's not like, I want the laydowns. It's like, bro, wait till we get you in the real world of sales of what an actual lead is. So, so like my number one thing is just product, number one. And then number two, it's like, okay, now that you understand that, It's simply just questions. And so I'm a huge believer in asking the right questions. And I actually created a 10-step process. I just named it the Pineda method. So I taught our people in Wealthy Creator and Investor this because it works for a seller. It works for, just any normal lead. And essentially my style is I don't like to make statements. I just ask questions over and over again. And the reason I'm asking questions
What do you mean by, can you clarify a statement versus a question?
A statement would be, hey, you need this program, XYZ, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's me telling you to do something.
I see. Okay.
Versus asking you the right questions that lead you to say, hey, I actually need this. Can you tell me what it is? Right? So let's just, we'll use one-on-one, for example, right? Because you did buy it, okay?
Yeah.
So I don't know how you bought it or what the sales process looked like. I didn't sell you, but the way I would sell one-on-one is that I would first make sure they're qualified, right? So they're going to fill out an application. Hey, how much money you making? How much liquid you got? Because right away, I would have to know that they're qualified. Okay, great. So you're like, no, we did this, that, boom, boom. Yes, I understand. Cool, he's qualified. All right. First thing I'm gonna do is just ask you a bunch of questions about your business, your goals, your life, everything, right? You're like, yeah, I flip houses in Hawaii and all these things. And, I might ask you, hey, so where do you want to take the business? What are your goals? Okay, I want to do this. Okay, but I also want to get into social media and I want to do multifamily. Okay, cool. What do you think your biggest bottlenecks are? What's your biggest pain points? And you're going to start saying, these are my pain points. These are everything. So, you're basically in this fact finding stage, right? And this is, part of the system, but it's like fact finding is probably the third step. The first and second step are about building expectations and trust. So right when we first start talking, I'd be like, hey, Daniel, this call is going to take 30 minutes. You got 30 minutes, right? Okay. I want to set expectations so that you're not wondering when this thing's going to end. Okay. It's going to take about 30 minutes. The objective here is to see if you're a fit for one-on-one coaching. Okay. So I'm going to ask you.
It's very clear from the beginning, right?
It's right from the beginning. I'm not trying to we're very transparent based selling. Hey, the objective here is to see if you're fit for one-on-one coaching. Ryan only takes a couple of them a year. So, he's very strict with who he wants. So we're going to just make sure that, you're a fit. And then if everything's a fit, I'll tell you about what it costs, how it works, everything that's included. And you can make a decision if you want to sign up. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So that's basically expectations. Second part is trust. All right. Just to give some background, okay, so now I'm selling you. Okay, let's just say it's me actually selling my thing. It's like, okay, just to give some background, I flipped hundreds of homes, hundreds of rentals. You want to be on social media. I've gotten 1 billion views online. You want multifamily. We've got, over 500 units. You want
to trust and credibility. Is
And my sales guys can do that too, right? Because, my trust flows through them. Right. Hey, just
they're borrowing your trust, right?
So, correct. Ryan did this. We've taught many students like you this. So it's using both my credibility and students' success of credibility. Hey, it's not just Ryan, by the way. Others have done this, right? So we did expectations, trust. Now we're going into fact finding, and I'm asking you about these things. Then I'm going to start pulling for pain. And I'm be like, so how is it just knowing where
are you struggling? What's
I'm asking you the struggles. And then it's like, all right, cool. I'm pulling pain. Then I actually want to go to pleasure. All right. How good's it going to feel solving that issue? What would you do if your business was doing that revenue and you weren't working those hours?
So you got me dreaming, thinking about the ideal outcome.
So. Yep. Ideal outcome. Because that's why you came. You want the ideal outcome. So this, like I said, this works for cars. It works for everything, right? So let's go over to the ideal. Okay, those are your ideal outcomes. Awesome. So, from there, once we get you in that frame of mind, it's now then making the transition to the actual pitch and product, right? I'm not trying to waste time here. It's like, all right, cool. So, Daniel, based on what you're telling me, man, as you know, we got a lot of different programs. Okay. It's not just one-on-one. We have All-Star, we have Rookie, we have Partner, all these things. But with your level and where you're at, I do think you actually qualify for All-Star or not All-Star, for one-on-one. Okay. Can I tell you about what's included with one-on-one? And you're like, yeah. So I go over all the deliverables of one-on-one, et cetera. And what I like to do is kind of like a price, I call it a price sandwich. So I'm going to give you the deliverables. Okay. I'm going to tell you the price very quickly and nonchalantly.
Okay.
And then I'm going to reinforce all the positive things you already told me. So I'm basically be like, here's
the
what's
ideal outcome. You mean like what I previously told you?
You already
about,
told
like,
me it,
okay.
right? So, we're going to, hey, here's everything included. Here's the price. And I know that when you go through this, you're going to be able to hit this goal that you told me, this goal that you told me, this goal that you told me, et cetera, right?
Okay.
So that's how I'm going to deliver, the actual product and the price and everything. And then, it's basically just like, do you have any questions about any of that? Does that make sense? You might have questions, you might not. From there, it's like, all right, so do you want to move forward, right? You can assume the close, it just depends how the conversation went, right? You might be like, dude, all that sounds great. I don't have the money right now. And then it's like, all right, well, let's figure out how that looks, right? From there, if it's a no, or now they're into question modes, after you delivered, the offer, it's then objection handling. So now I got to handle all these different objections and figure out, okay, I know the objections that people have, right?
It's always the same objections.
There's always the same objections, right? It's a money objection. Maybe they don't have the money. They believe in the value, but they don't have the money. Maybe they don't believe in the value and have the money. So you got to make clear to them the value. So those could be some price objections. Maybe they have just like their own limiting belief objection of like, I do believe this could help, but I don't know if I have the time. I don't know if I can actually apply it. I don't know if I'm meant to do that. Like, so now it has nothing to do with the product or me or whatever. It's like, okay, we got to help you believe in you. Right. Or maybe they have an objection about the product or, the credibility. Hey, look, why would I need this? Like, what has Ryan done to, help me with my specific thing? Right. I had a guy at WealthCon who was like that. He was like, I don't know if the All-Star program's for me because I do mobile homes. And I'm like, bro, you know how many mobile homes I've done? Like, I didn't talk about it on stage. But then it's like, okay, dude, let me tell you, mobile homes, houses, same crap. Okay. And I just start naming off things about mobile. He's like, oh yeah. I'm like I said, but you're going to be fine. Your niche is not so unique that we don't know what to do with it. Okay. So it's handling, now it's like an us objection. So you would have a you objection of like, hey, I have my own limiting beliefs. Or an us objection of, hey, I don't know, like if that's worth it, or you guys know my situation properly. Right. And there are other objections to learn and other things. Right. Then there's like spouse objection. You hear this a lot. Right. And so
that's a real objection, by the way.
It's a huge objection. It's like, it might be the number one with money, right? A spouse objection, a partner objection. So you got to know how to navigate that, right? And so there's lots of ways to navigate both. And it depends who you're talking to, right? And how the conversation has been going. But it's like, women wouldn't like if I say this, but, I'd be like, hey, Daniel, you're like, hey, I got to actually talk to my wife about it. I'll be like, so let me ask you a question, Daniel. Like, does your wife make all the business decisions in your house? And you're gonna be like,
no, she doesn't.
No, I make all the decisions. So why are you what's the deal here? Because and not to offend you, Daniel. But
I got you.
A lot of people, this is me role playing, not to offend you, Daniel, but like a lot of people do use their wife or a spouse or a partner as an excuse because they don't really want to do it. If you don't really want to do it, don't use her as an excuse. Like, it's fine if you don't. And then it's like, oh, well, no, like, people always, it just depends how the conversation is going. And then, from there, it's just like, okay, so they're like, no, like, I'm going to do it, but I just got to, be respectful to my spouse. And I'll be like, okay, well, let me ask you this. I'm married 10 years. I have 3 kids. Okay. My wife and I do not agree on every decision in our house. That's just the way it is. But I'll tell you this, even if we don't agree, when it comes to business or money or finances, I always have the final say. That's how our relationship works. Somebody's got to have the final say, right? Because when there's disagreement, somebody wins. There's no somebody wins. You either do it or you don't. And I go, in the case of money and business, if there's disagreement, it defaults to me. That's just how my family works.
I mean, I think every family is different, you know, like I actually I got some advice from my pastor, like when we were just doing pre-marriage counseling, and he's like, Daniel, there's going to be times in your life when you're going to make a good business decision and it's going to make you a lot of money, but then your wife is going to disagree with you. And then at that point in time, you basically have to let that business decision go and like make sure that you're on the same page with your wife. And so I think like for me personally, there's a few decisions where I was like, I think this will be best for decision-wise for our family or for things like, but then my wife, if she's not on the same page, I basically have to like let that decision go and just like basically not lose money, like, you know, just make the worst decision just because
just make the worst decision.
or make the less favorable
less
decision.
Stressful decision.
Just so it's like that we're on the same page on the long term. So that was just some advice I got with my pastor just to share a little bit.
Yeah. And look, for me, I would handle any objection like with my own personal experience, right? So I would be like, well, I mean, here's the thing. My wife and I have not always disagreed or agreed on every decision, right? And I'm like, look, but when it comes to something I'm passionate about and she knows it, she will support it. She's not going to be like, look, you know, don't do that or I'm going to like throw a fit and it's going to like, I'm just going to, you know, have a bad mood. And she's like, no, you know what? Obviously it's important to you. I support. And that's happened multiple times. Actually, it's happened in our personal home multiple times where I'm like, hey, babe, we need to sell the house because like I really need the capital to grow. And she's like, no, I don't want to sell the house. And I use that story a lot to tell couples who are struggling. I'm like, do you own a house? Yeah. I'm like, how much equity you got? Like, oh, well, we got like 100,000. I'll be like, sell the house. And they're like, no, my wife would never let me. She loves the house. I go, so you'd rather be broke and live in some house than, you know, have your financial future and like be able to take the next step and get out of debt and whatever else, right? Like that makes no sense, you know? It's like, and I had to have those conversations with Mindy as we, you know, leveled up. In the end, even though she may not have been for it initially.
But the thing was like, you always, at the end of the day, when you made a decision, like she was on board with it. She wasn't happy about it, but then she was with you on that decision.
Correct, right? And that's how we have always operated, right? Because yes, we're allowed to disagree, but still somebody is going to have the final say. Okay. And like you, I still have to make the decision, right? I'm like, look, do I believe in this decision so much that I'm willing, even if she might be mad about it for a while, I'm still willing to do it, right? Or, hey, I don't really care that much about this. It's not worth the headache. Those are two different things. And so, you know, it's like, you would ask in a sales like, how important is this to you really? Because if it's going to cause you to get divorced, obviously it's not worth it to you. Right. But if it's just like, you're going to have to spend a week in the doghouse and you like, you know, do you think this is worth it? Sometimes we have to make those decisions. But that's kind of like the framework I would handle a spouse objection with. And I would also use the other side of it too, where I'd be like, look, I have literally no say on what goes in the house. You know, like she buys all the furniture, she buys all the kids stuff. She picks like there's random crap from Amazon every day. I do not hound her. I don't complain. I just accept it as is. And like, there's things she does that I'm just like, I would not have done that. But that's just how our marriage and relationship works. And so, you know, it's telling stories and helping people see that. Because some guys, you know, like, you know, they'll tell you one thing. Yeah, dude, no, I'm the decision maker. I make everything. I go, so what's going to happen if your wife says she doesn't want you to do this? What will you do? And he's be like, well, I'm going to still do it. And then like, you know, you call the next day like, yeah, dude, honestly, I can't do it. I'm like, just so you know, like, so we're clear. Your wife is the decision maker in your home. You are not. Don't say you are. Okay. Cause like you're telling me you've always wanted to do stuff and your wife doesn't let you and whatever. Like you're not the decision maker. I don't care what you think you are. You're not. And then they like might be a realization thing. But then that's a whole different topic of, you know, heads of household and who, you know.
I mean, that's a very like complicated subject, I think. Just like husband and wife decision making, you know, just there's healthy and unhealthy ways to kind of do it. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of times where it's just an excuse so they can like think better or make a decision later. But sometimes there is like a little like nuance to it as far as like, Like, and it's like, that's a whole little thing you can like dive into, like how should decisions be made in the household, like, you know?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with coaching. This is like, you're making them learn like, hey, like
reflecting on their marriage or like their,
I'm like, dude, you need to really think about this, because look, even if you go down this path, we're going to now go buy houses. We're going to take on debt. Like, you're going to hire people. This is there's going to be more decisions other than this. So you need to make sure you're on the same page with how these decisions are going to be made. Because at the end of the day, you know, look, if she's the one who truly is running the show and, you know, you need her permission for everything. It's going to be tough to get far. And that is what it is. And, you know, women might be watching this saying, well, that's not fair. Like, it should be equal. It's not. Life ain't equal, guys. I don't know what to tell you. You know, like, my wife and I do not agree on each decision we both make. Right. But we do know at the end of the day, at least from the Christian perspective, the man is the leader of the household. And so we will always default to that, because we always default to what faith tells us to default to. And, you know, I think at this point too, track record and experience shows that, you know what, like, and at this point it's a little different, but like even early on in our marriage, she was always still supportive and trusting, even if she disagreed. And that's why, you know, I'm so grateful to have her as a partner, because there are other people who have wives who don't do that, right? If they disagree, nothing happens.
I think that's like a big point. I think that people don't realize is like your support and agreement at home makes a big difference on how far you can go. I mean, like
so much.
Just like when you have strife at home, like you can't like, I can't think straight. There's just a bunch of things that like, it screws up your business. And like, we're human beings as a whole, right? So like our personal lives are like a complete, like, they're not separated from our business lives. And so I know whenever I have like big issues with me and my wife, like it definitely brings it into the business, whether I want to or not.
Oh, 100%. So,
but I'm very grateful that I have an awesome, amazing wife. Thank you, honey. Like, super appreciate.
And obviously your wife has supported you, you know, going and starting businesses and quitting your job and buying coaching. Like,
in the very beginning, she was like very hesitant just because like I didn't do it before, right? I didn't have any track record.
Well, and your attitude was that too. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
Because when your attitude is, hey, we don't need to do this. And all of a sudden you're like, hey, we need to do this. That's a shift for her to be like, well, wait a minute, dude. You've been telling me for years, we don't need this stuff. So like, it does take time for, you know, new ways of thinking to come into your family.
Whenever you bring in a new idea, she needs to see, or they need to kind of see like the thought process behind it and understand like how you got to that point too. Right?
Yeah. And I've had to do that with many times where I'm like, hey, so I know what I've said before up to this point was this, but now I believe this. And here's why. And, you know, I know it's like weird or whatever, but this is why I believe what I believe now.
And sometimes when we have arguments, someone like shared this with me. I don't remember who it was, but it's like, we both are like very reasonable people. And so like, given the same information, we'll probably come to the same conclusion. But we're probably looking from different like information sources, or we have a different like values or things that like we're interpreting. So basically our information is different. So where is the disconnect in our information, and why are we disagreeing on this? So,
I think for us, we now at this point, 10 years in with where we're at, right? So it's like, I was saying this before. Okay. Because I've had success with these decisions I've made, even when she was resistant initially, she always supported it. And now support comes ezy. It's like, oh, Ryan, you want to do that? Well, of course. Like, you do you. So now there's never really I can't think of one disagreement we've had in years in terms of business or money or anything like that. Right. But that took time to build to that point. And if you've been I call them slapdicks, if you've been an idiot, you know, as a man up to this point, you make bad decisions that just never work out. Well, I think your wife's using a good level of discernment to be like, yo, I don't think you should do that. So it goes both ways. But anyway, so those are some objections. Back to the sales process. That was a whole different tangent. But basically you handle objections. And what I would say is, my philosophy, the last step of sales is like, and we could go way more in depth on each thing, but like the general broad view of handling any kind of appointment or sales call at the end. Look, I'm not a follow-up guy. Never have been, never will be. I'm like, we're getting this done or we're not. Okay. And whatever way I've been speaking to them to that point clearly isn't working. And so I basically do what I call is throw the Hail Mary. And for instance, right,
we're not even talking about tonality and all those things, right? Okay. But, you know, assuming and during these question finding things, we're matching their tonality and like, you know, we're creating also things to relate to, right? So, you know, during questions, if we were to go deeper into it, I would talk about finding things that commonality between you, right? Oh, you're married? Yeah, I'm married. How long have you been married? Okay, cool. You know, all these things. And then during those questions too, you want to start asking things that you know are going to be objections, so they cannot become objections later.
So you doing what stage are you doing these things?
This is early on when I'm fact finding. I mean, like I said, I didn't have time to go through all of them, but like during the fact finding stage, if you start asking questions you know are going to be problems, they cannot use those as objections later.
I see.
Because you're already addressing them. So for instance, let's just say the wife thing again, since we were talking about that. It's like, you know, while you're, okay, hey, you know, are you married? Is your spouse involved in the business? Yeah, she is. Or she's, yeah, I'm married, but no, like this is just going to be me. Okay, great. So, you know, you're the decision maker when it comes to this real estate business. Yes. Unknowingly, they cannot now use that objection down the road. You just told me you're the guy. It doesn't matter. So now you'd be breaking from what you just said. So it's learning to ask questions and already handle the objections that you know will come. You know, you can ask the objection of, so how much money do you have to invest in real estate? Okay, you can't now tell me you don't have the money. I just heard you say you have the money. So those are other skilled things later on. But down the road, okay, we get all the way to, all right, you've handled every objection, nothing's happening. I do what's called throw the Hail Mary. And so throwing the Hail Mary is simple. It's like, you know, if we've been buddy and like, you know, just vibing, right? I would do the exact opposite and just flip the script. Okay. So, you know, let's just say, for instance, I'll use an extreme example to illustrate. Let's say someone and I, like I'm talking to a very like intense, passionate, emotional person, right? And so I'm like getting there with him too, right? I'm like, yeah, dude, let's do this, you know, whatever, right? He's like, bro, I just don't know. And, you know, whatever, right? So I would flip the script and I would go ultra like soft and reserved and pulling back. I'd be like, hey, can I actually get real with you for a second? You know, look, you know, and then I would just, I would talk to them in that way. Like, I know this is a big decision and I know like you got a lot of fear, whether you're willing to admit it or not, but I really believe this can change your life. Now, you know, I would keep going, but the point is before I was like high energy, whatever, right? So I'm going to try like a last resort. It's like a
pattern interrupt kind of thing.
Yeah. And because whatever I'm doing is not working, right? So, and I would do the opposite too. If I'm being super nice and super friendly with somebody and they're still not, you know, doing it, I would do the opposite and I would get, I don't want to say mean, but I would get like
more aggressive.
I'd be like, bro, how long did you tell me you wanted to do this? And they're like, oh dude, for years. You know what, man? I'm just going to sign you up. Like, let's go. We're not going to do this anymore, bro. Like we've been buddy. I already know what you're going to do. You're going to keep procrastinating with the same old crap. Let's go. And that's how I would close that person. I would just flip the script.
That's super interesting. I've never heard somebody talk about that before, the Hail Mary.
Yeah, like I said, like I have sales philosophies that I've never documented.
Yeah, but internally, subconsciously, you've been doing them.
I've just tried them and done them, and I've realized like, all right, dude, this is going nowhere. I'm not following up. This dude, like, I've done everything right to this point. It's time to try the opposite as a last second resort.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Because I'm like burning the bridge, dude. I'm be like, Daniel, look, bro, I think you're a great dude. I'm not going to lie to you, but I think you're soft. I think you're scared. And I think you're, you know, XYZ. You can choose to be that way and you'll be successful. Don't worry. Like no one will know but you and I. But at the end of the day, if you actually want to level up and be with the big boys, you got to pay big boy money. That's what it takes. And so I got a bunch of other calls today. This last spot is going to get filled up. It's up to you whether or not you want to do it. I don't really care. My life's not going to change one way or the other. Ball's in your court, man. Do you want to do this or not? If not, I'm not going to follow up. Just to tell you. I'm going on. I've got other people. So you need to tell me. And then so like that's flipping the script. Like we were buddies and then all of a sudden now I'm just going in on you.
No, I mean, that's super interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard anybody like talk about that or like share that tactic before. It's super interesting.
Yeah. So I don't even know what led us to that point, but I think, the point is those are the things I have to now pull from my brain from just years of sales and negotiating and different tactics and things. And, it all goes back to, used to be my belief. I was like, dude, sales is like manipulative and, you got people who probably shouldn't be buying these because you hear these stories. And I think Bigger Pockets and stuff put that in our brain of all of these education companies and things that.
And to be honest with you, I feel like there are certain, education courses or things where there is very little value and it is manipulative and you have to sell it because there isn't a whole lot of value.
Correct.
And so even as a flipper or people who buy houses, I think there's some guys who they do things the wrong way, right? But if you really are providing a service or doing things the right way, that's how you can have the conviction or do it comes across very differently. But basically it's long story short, there is ones where you're selling snake oil and there's ones where you're not. But then when you're selling it correctly, you're really adding value to the person and you're just trying to unlock their perspective so they can see the value that they're getting, right? It's always an exchange of value. So.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It all goes back. And that's what I'm saying. I used to think that because that was what I was always told. And I was like, bro, I don't want to be one of these salesy gurus. But then I realized that, well, number one, everything's sales.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No one needs anything. Right? You don't need the shoes you bought, the car you drive. Everybody makes choices in life and they're being sold on the decisions they're making.
100% true.
You don't need to eat organic or vegan. You don't need to live in Hawaii. You could live in the Midwest in $50,000 Indianapolis. Why don't you do it? Right? So if everything was just about, hey, this is what's best for them. No, people buy what they want. So that's number one. So it's a reframe of, bro, no, there are no necessities in life.
It's all perception, right? It's what the actual thing and the perceived value is. If you're getting if you perceive it to be value, is value. And so a lot of times I think it's maybe not valuable to you, but to the other person it is value, then it actually is value too. So
100%. And once you realize that okay, well, everything has value. It's just, does this person you're talking to actually, can they value from it, right? But then it goes back to why I just finally realized, after teaching them how to sell, I was like, dude, it all goes back to product.
Yeah.
Because they got to believe in what they're selling.
Yeah.
If they don't, it will show through in conviction. It'll show through in them explaining why that person needs it. And they won't be able to, handle the objections in a passionate way.
Yeah.
Because for instance, we were just both at WealthCon. We saw how many people's lives were changed from the events and the people and the worship and all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, I will literally sell anyone into WealthCon because I believe in it. It's your life's going to change. You need to get to this event.
I think that's why right? If you were to bring us into a sales room of students, we might be the best salespeople because
no, you guys are. That was a great idea you had.
We really believe in the product because we've seen how it changed our lives, right? And so just we're the best customers or your raving fans are probably your best sales guys because they're with conviction can say this worked for me and I think it can work for you too.
Well, that's why Brian Davila ended up the first guy because that was him. But no, we are going to do that next WealthCon. We're going to allow the students to sell.
But even to speak of conviction, I think some of the best speakers on stage, all the guys who are really good, they really believe in what they say and what they have to offer. And I think sometimes you get guys who are maybe they're just they're maybe teaching things, but they're not super passionate about what they're teaching. Versus other guys are teaching the exact same thing, but they're just really passionate about that. And that really comes across on stage as far as their performance or just, it's the little subtle things where just, Thatch is just he believes in the rentals, right? Other guys are hey, rentals are not good at this point in time, but just whatever you believe with all your heart, when you give a presentation or share it on stage, it bleeds through. So
it 100% shows through. So yeah, that's why it finally clicked for me. I was I could teach him all the tactical things of how to flow through a negotiation.
Yeah.
But if they don't have belief and passion in the product because they just have not been trained on it enough. They don't know. That becomes the problem. And so, it goes back to the point of, dude, I have a choice. Okay. Somebody hops on, they want to learn real estate. We got one shot to help them out. Right. if they don't buy with us, then what happens? Well, there's like a number of different possibilities. They keep on with the same crappy life they've always had. That ain't good for them or us. They choose another program, which might be snake oil. You know, if you believe you have the best product and program, then everything else is inferior and therefore a worse deal, right? So you should have conviction that, hey, this is where you need to be. Or, you know, they, you know, do it without you and then whatever, they just waste time, they lose money, they whatever, right? Like, so in all scenarios, as long as you believe in the product, them not buying is actually bad for everyone.
Yeah.
If you believe in the product. And so, you know, I've just realized that that's the most important thing in life. And, you know, this is also important too. And, you know, this is like a lesson for you as well for your employees. It's like, yo, if you believe that this is the best place to work, you know, you need to do everything in your power to convey that message to employees and recruits and online social media and stuff, because that's going to bring people who believe in the message. And it's like, guys, this is the best place. This is where we're going. You guys can be a part of it. And it all shines through. And if they don't, it's like, bro, you missed out. You could have been here doing this and that. But it's all sales. Everything reverts back to sales, recruiting, products, social media selling. Like, hey, watch the rest of this video.
Yeah.
Like everything is sales. So that's crazy, man. What's your final thoughts for people who are, you know, doesn't even have to be a wealthy investor, but just like on the fence of being coached and, you know, what would you say to them?
I think honestly, like there's some people who are just like not good candidates for being coached. And I think, like you said, like if they're not humble, they're not willing to kind of like be receptive, or they're not going to apply it, it's almost like a waste of their money. But if you're willing to apply and actually take action with what you're receiving, I think it's like the way to kind of supercharge your growth. And so I think the big thing is like, if you think coaching is gonna be a magic pill to just kind of get you to the next thing by just like plopping down like however much it is, I think it's like you're actually a bad fit to coaching. Just save your money, you know. But if you're like really gonna take action, you're really gonna apply what you're learning or be humble to receive it, I think like coaching is like the best way to kind of like get you to your goals faster, or even hit goals that you thought might not even be like on your radar or possible at this point in time. So
no, I 100% agree. So what are your next big goals so people know, and how can they support you?
Right now we're just trying to get our flipping business to like the next level. I think after I have a few calls with you or a few like sessions with you, we have a game plan. We're going to be starting a monthly meetup in Hawaii and just trying to add as much value and basically blow that up to like be the best meetup in Hawaii. So we'll see how far we can go. But I think we have like a lot of great ideas just from like talking with you, with your team, and kind of like game planning this whole thing. And so just big meetup, a little bit more of like get our podcast and like reels a little bit more up and running, I think better. But basically the two big things is our flipping company, get a better job and just everything we do over there. And then also like start a monthly meetup where we can eventually hold like a little mini WealthCon in Hawaii.
There we go. Don't make it a little mini. Just do it. You know, I mean, whatever. It's going to start as a meetup, then it's going to become a mastermind, then it's going to become a, you know, full-on event, workshop, and then it can be a whole conference. It's kind of like what we did. Yeah. No, I mean, just basically like riding on your pigtails as far as just what you guys have done, and just kind of like what you guys kind of paved the way for us. And so we're kind of like just following your footsteps to kind of do something very similar, but just kind of do it like in our own flavor. Yeah. No, I love it, bro. And I love, like I said, just your willingness to be coached, your willingness to always help out and learn. A lot of people don't know this about you, so I'll say it. You know, you brought your entire team to WealthCon, you know, to give them a good time in Vegas and reward them for a good year and everything. And not a lot of guys do that. You know, you literally fly from Hawaii, you know, for these one-on-one sessions to be in person. We could easily do them over Zoom, yet you spend the time, the money, and everything else to come here and to make it happen. And, you know, you're always bringing the Hawaiian chocolates and gifts. Like, dude, just everything you're doing, man. Like, I want you to know, and I want people to know that like your heart's in the right place. You know, there's not that many people that I would like stand up here and vouch for and be like, hey, you need to do business with this guy, you know? But I can confidently say, like, if anyone's in Hawaii, they should want to work for you. They should want to lend to you. They should want to come to your meetup and be a part of what you're building, because, I mean, I can just see it firsthand how you treat people.
Thank you. That really means a lot. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
You should just clip this for a testimonial. Just put it on, everything you got.
No, thank you. No, I appreciate that. I think we might do that. So
there you go. I'll give your editor an easy clip. But no, anyways, guys, I'm going to link to Daniel's stuff down below, Instagram, everything else. You want to connect with him, do it. And make sure to subscribe to this podcast. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace. There's winners and losers. There's no in between.
No.
But people don't get it.
If you think the price of winning is too high, wait till you get the bill for regret. And that bill is generational. And a lot of individuals are passing that bill on from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next. There's a